Mr. Chairman, our next witness is witness 399. You'll find his evidence at page 411 in your supplemental book.
Thank you.
There will be a voiceover for this witness, so what you hear is the voice of a member of the council team that repeating what the witness says.
Mr. Witness, thank you for agreeing to testify. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Repeat after me, please. I solemnly declare that I will speak the truth.
I solemnly declare to tell the truth
And nothing but the truth.
the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Before I hand you over to counsel to ask you questions, I just want you to keep in mind that when you're asked a question, you should be aware that your answer risks identifying you. So just be careful when you answer the questions. You follow me?
Yes, I do understand.
Counsel.
The witness is a major in the security forces and commander of anti-riot special units. The unit recruits dangerous criminals from prisons with the promise of freedom, train and arm them, and use them to target and kill demonstrators and damage the property. After the riots are over, the prisoners are then executed by the security forces. The council has checked the identity of this witness. Witness 399, can you please explain to the tribunal how your special unit operated during November 2019?
The unit that I worked in had the duty to use dangerous criminals who were in prison and to give them weapons which were not belonging to any organization. That's to say, those that had been taken out of circulation, old weapons that were not being used anymore, or all kinds of other cold weapons.
You used, do we have the witness?
And his voice is cut off.
صدا وصل شد بفهمید.
The sound is back. Go ahead.
Why you deployed non-standardized weapons? What was the purpose for that?
که اگه گلوله به کسی
So that if somebody is shot by a bullet, the forensic medicine, the coroner, and the experts cannot tell where it came from. They would not be able to relate it to the police force or to the military or the other forces that had attacked these people.
The use of bullets that would explode upon impact. Can you explain to the tribunal how these bullets would damage the tissues of the victims?
یه سری
These are two time bullets. These are bullets that have explosive inside them. Upon impact with the body, they create a huge wound. And these bullets are used only when you want to kill somebody, not when you want to wound them.
Are they prohibited under Iranian law or international law, to your knowledge?
به لحاظ
They are prohibited under international law because these are bullets that are used 100% to kill somebody, not to wound that person. And even during the war in Iraq, they were only used for those who worked with telecommunications, and you don't use them for anybody else because they are a bullet and they also have explosives. And these two things are done together.
How your unit operated on 16th of November?
The unit that I worked in had only the duty to protect the physical protection of buildings, and in our unit we did not even have weapons. We only had shields. That's to say, the unit that was under my command.
What would happen to the prisoners that you have deployed after they complete their duty and finish the whatever that had been assigned to them?
بله
Yes, these prisoners were not recruited by me or the unit under my command. They were selected through the Ministry of Interior, and they were trained for this purpose. Anywhere you would have riots or you would have demonstrations, they would penetrate the normal crowd, and they would push the crowds towards unrest, towards destruction, towards vandalism, in order to create a pretext for the government to rack them down. That's to say, in order to calm down the protests through normal means, they would do it through lethal force. That's to say, this is a scenario which would be written by the government themselves. And of course, these prisoners would have a shelf life. After the shelf life expires, either they die through overdose of drugs or they are hit by a car, by an accident. And that's how, as much as I know.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, counsel.
Good afternoon, witness. I have only one question for you. You've described the special unit that you worked with and the removal of the individuals from prison to then essentially, as I see it, operate as agent provocateurs who cause violent acts to occur in order to, I assume, then get the violent response from other forces that are in the area. My question is, the other forces that were in the areas, the units, such as the IRGC, the local police and others, were they aware of your unit and its activities? And were they aware when individuals that worked within your unit were introduced into the crowds, the protesters, that they were overlooking, that they were attempting to control? Were they aware, to your knowledge?
نیروهای
The other forces that were in the city, be sure that they were all in plain clothes. The paramilitary, the Revolutionary Guards, the police force, and of course their commanders knew about all this, and through the direct order of their commanders, this kind of a group would enter the crowd and to push them towards the demonstrations and violence.
Justice Yakub.
This unit, I don't want to ask you where, but it was related to a whole province, a big city, a whole state, the whole country, or what? Don't give me the name of the province or state. I'm not interested in that.
This is something that exists all over Iran.
Division of the police, some kind of geographic division would have a unit of this nature. How would you describe that division? Because I'm just talking about structure now. As I understand you, you say that this kind of unit was a regular part of the structured police force.
نه این
No, this is not a unit which is a part of the police force. This is drawn from high criminals, that's to say thugs, ruffians, that's to say those people who are known to be evil people in their own cities, and they are organized through security forces, not the police force.
The unit is a unit of the security forces. Then which province does each province one such unit?
تا اونجایی که
As far as I know, you have it in all provinces. In something done, these units.
How many units are you personally aware of the existence of?
میدونم
I don't exactly know, but I believe that they exist in many provinces.
Do the units get together perhaps from time to time to have meetings and conferences or something to decide how best they can carry out their objectives and to compare their experiences to make sure that they do it right?
Well, the units themselves, no, but the intelligence protection officers, yes, who are in charge of such units, they have their own meetings.
There is an intelligence protection officer who is in charge of a unit, right? That's the immediate boss of the unit. Is that correct?
نه به این صورت.
Not exactly. In some form, yes, but it is not in an
It's another
ولی این
way.
از بالا از
through security officials, such units, such individuals are being controlled.
بالا این کاراش
And they get some privileges. For example, their crimes are being forgiven. They enjoy some privileges by doing so.
All right, but there must be two parts of the unit. The one part who are actually the criminals themselves, and the other part of the unit are the managers of the unit. Now, I'm more interested in that level of the existence of the unit, its management. There must be some, if I get it right, some non-criminal people who manage this unit. You can't leave it all to criminals to organize, unless I'm wrong about that.
بله این
Yes, you're correct. Each of these groups have a leader. The leaders are connected to the security command. According to the orders they receive from the security department, they, in fact, are asked to do certain things, such as vandalism, putting arson, and other things.
You at all for you to say what your level was in the group? Were you a leader or a deputy leader or something, or would you not like to say?
At the present conditions, I don't want to talk about this at all.
So who would the leader theoretically now be accountable to? I understand there's a group. The group has a leader. Who would the leader account to? Who would be the leader's boss?
به مقامات امن
They will be answerable and accountable to the higher security officials. They're line managers, in fact.
What would that line manager be called? You see, because line managers quite often have names. How would that level of the line manager be described? Who is the boss of the unit? Because I'm going to go higher up. I want to ask you, if you can, to try and go higher up the chain so that we can understand where the management of this unit sits in the structure.
The Provincial Security Council is above all of them as you go up in line.
Right, and there'd be a large number of, 20 or 30 units, just to give a round figure. What is your estimate? I know you don't know the exact number. More or less, how many units would there be in the province in which you were?
بالای 100 نفر
Maybe above 100 of these criminals.
They are brought into action at specified times. Does that mean that at most times those units are not, in the absence of protests and public problems and so on, am I right that these units have hardly any work to do, or do they have other things that they have to do?
یا
They are either thieves or smugglers. They are in prison in normal cases. And whenever they want to use them, they just take them out of prison, and against the services they provide, they enjoy some advantages, some privileges, either financial or otherwise.
I'm sorry, we are talking past each other. I'm talking about the managers of the unit, the good guys, if I can put it that way, the people who run the units. Those people, what are they involved in? This must be just one little aspect of their responsibility? Or would you have 2 or 3 people responsible for the units alone, maintaining them and making sure that they're properly maintained and so on?
نه مدیران اینها
The managers of these units are the personnel of the security forces or the intelligence ministry, or they are employees of the guards of a ministry. So they are working in other places. They are receiving salaries from the state for the services that they normally provide.
The prisoner, right? You are a person who receives a salary. I mean, if there are so many people that receive the salary, you shouldn't be troubled about saying that.
بله
Yes.
And all right, so there are a number of these people, they receive salaries. What would they do when there was no violence? Would they be involved in other security duties?
If you would allow me, I will not explain.
Have a budget.
Could you repeat, please?
Does the unit have a budget? How much money you can spend on it?
والا من
I don't know whether they've got a budget line or not, but certainly whatever activity you want to carry out, some money should be paid for it. Where the budget comes from, I don't know.
People apply for the job in the security services to do this job, or are they moved there?
این دیگه توی سلسله مراتب
In the hierarchy, this is a part of their hierarchical job in the military system. It depends on their capabilities. They decide whether they want to enter into such system or not. After they have been employed, they receive some special trainings, and then the higher officials decide whether they want to deploy these people in such sections or not.
Ask the people whether they want to be deployed there or not, because there's no point in deploying somebody there if you don't want to have them there. That's right. If they don't want to be there, it's dangerous to have them.
دقیقاً کسی
They are exactly individuals who have no problem with carrying out such duties, with doing such activities.
Can I infer from that you had no problems in carrying out these duties?
این سوال رو
I cannot respond to this question, sorry.
No further questions.
Thank you, witness. I just have a few additional questions. You mentioned in your evidence that the units, the people who are part of the unit receive training. Can you give an indication about what the nature of the training is?
آموزش
They receive some military and security training, nothing particular.
Who organizes the training program? Is it done at the city level, the regional level, provincial level, or is there the same training throughout the whole country?
I apologize. You apparently did not quite understand what I said. Well, they are a subsection of the security forces. Based on their hierarchy, they receive some training. They don't recruit anyone from outside to provide such training. According to the official hierarchies, they just provide such trainings within their own systems.
Thank you, sir. My question was whether if you imagine the training, there's certain subjects that the individuals are trained about. Who comes up with the agenda for the training? I understand that it's within the security services, but is it the local security services that train the members of the unit in the particular areas, or is there an instruction from the national level about what the individual should be trained about? That was more my question. I don't know if it's any clearer.
بله.
Yes, it is much clearer. I cannot explicitly respond to you whether the instructions and the agenda come at the provincial level or local, but I can say more than 90% of such decisions are being made at the national level.
And just a further question, though I imagine you may have difficulty to answer this one as well. With respect to the activities of the unit in relation to the protests, were the activities of the unit determined at the local level, at the regional level, or at the national level? Any clarity you can give would be really helpful.
I do not understand your question. Could you please repeat it once again?
Maybe I'll give a little bit of an example. So we've been hearing testimony the past few days about what happened in the relevant period in Aban in 2019. So the question is, this unit was operational in different ways. We've been led to understand in different parts of the country. The unit, as you told my...
بله دقیقاً.
Exactly.
You told my learned colleague that the unit operated with bosses, that there was some structure, so there was a manager at the local level. So the question is, was it the local manager who decided what the unit would do, what kind of activity they would carry out in relation to the protests, or was the decision taken at the regional level or at the national level? Is that clearer?
دقیقاً.
Yes, exactly. The Provincial Security Council or the Governor General or the governor decides where to use this unit and how to use it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I feel that I'm missing the detail, not because you're not sharing, but more perhaps because we're not using the same terminology. And so perhaps you can be patient with me, and I don't know if you'd be happy to do this, but maybe if you are able to, and if counsel allows us, that he might draw what he's been trying to explain to us at some point and share it with us to see, because I feel that we're speaking at cross purposes. All of us have that, or at least I have the organogram in my mind, and I'm trying to fit in where his unit sits or where such units sit. But it's not clear because they're not within the structure. And so it'd be really helpful to get an understanding of what that structure looks like, because in the written testimony it's referred to, I think, as the anti-riot unit, as an anti-riot unit. Is that correct?
And then that's correct. If the tribunal would like, we'll ask witness that after this hearing,
این اصلا جزء سلسله بندی نظامی نیست.
he will
Well, this is not a part of the military organization at all.
be for their organization and let us have. Anyway, the witness is just now testifying again, saying that this is not part of the usual military setup, so it doesn't appear anywhere in
Well,
the system.
but our organogram has far more than just the military units, and I think within the testimony we've heard references to military, to security, to anti-riot, so I think there's some misuse of terminology that's confusing me at the very least, and perhaps we can give him some ownership of the process and he can demonstrate what he's trying to say in a way that might be easier for us to understand, because I fear that some of it is being lost in the terminology used.
We can put this to the witness, but separate after the hearing, so if he can answer your questions in a supplementary report.
I'm happy with that. I just might clarify it a little more. If he feels comfortable to explain it visually to us now, I'd be grateful as well if he were to, because I think all of us are trying to get to the same point of where this fits in within the bigger map.
I mean, understanding the terminology that he has used, basically all these units are controlled ultimately by Ministry of Interior, which is basically intelligence services in Iran, and under the command of the
Sorry to interrupt.
local.
I think we'd rather hear this from the witness. I'm sorry to interrupt, counsel, but either
There is
now
there is a
or later.
suggestion if the tribunal prefers to have a private session with the witness at some time.
Should we decide at the end? Should we decide at the end? But I think that might be a good idea.
We will organize that separately. Thank you.
For now, perhaps the witness might answer the simpler question of the relationship between the anti-riot unit and the Provisional National Security Council, because those are two terms that I do seem to understand at the moment. So if I can understand that relationship, maybe I can then deduce some more information.
در
What exactly do you want me to explain to you about the anti-riot unit and its relationship with the Provincial Security Council, or do you want to know about the hierarchy of decision-making? Do they only decide to bring on anti-riot units, or whether they decide to bring them, whether they decide to resort to the local police and who to bring to the protests? All of these are being decided by the Provincial Security Council at the higher level based on the individuals who have participated in the protests and the level of the protest. So this is not a particular thing that we can say that the anti-riot unit will directly enter into the scene. It is being decided by the hierarchy at what level and at what stage the unit should enter into operation.
Okay, so now the police has entered into the conversation as well, which adds to my confusion. So I'll revert to my initial question. Let's start with the lower level that I understand. So you have the anti-riot unit. From what I've understood so far, the line managers, as you refer to them, the next line up would be the Provincial National Security Council. Is that correct?
We have two things, provincial, then we have a national. We have a Provincial Security Council, and then we have one for nationwide. And then from the nationwide, it comes to each province and each governorate, and they all have their own councils. These are the separate organisms.
Anti-riot unit, the Provincial National Council. Above that, you're saying it's the National Security Council. in between those, is that where the Ministry of Interior sits?
وزارت کشور
The Ministry of Interior is at the top of this pyramid.
Then I think we need to look at this pyramid because it's very different to the pyramid we've been looking at to date. Thank you.
Mr. Witness, I would like to know, in relation to the training of the prisoner, who do they have regular training, so when the time needed, the Security Council can call them?
آموزش
They don't have any specific training, breaking windows, set to fire shops. That's the kind of training that they have.
آموزش خاصی نمیخواد.
It doesn't need any kind of a specific training.
You mentioned that they have they were trained as a special unit or special provocateur unit or whatever they call
من
it.
لیدرهاشون رو خدمت شما.
No, I was talking about the leaders. I was not talking those who are under them.
Mr. Witness, I have one final question. It's extremely practical, which is once a decision is made that your unit would become involved in a protest in a particular area, do the local security forces, whoever they might be, do they participate in deciding what it is that that unit will do? For example, in our particular situation, we want 2 banks burned. In another situation, we want a gas station attacked. Is that something that involves the local authorities on the ground, or are those decisions also made at a provincial or higher level?
این تصمیم
As far as these decisions are concerned, some of them are made at the level of the council, Security Council of the province, and a part of it is given to the leaders, and they will determine what to do when they go to the streets, etc.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask some questions, if I may. From what you've said, well, let me just pick up on the training issue, which I don't understand. Their job, from what you've described, is going to the streets and acting like criminals. So what training do they require for that? Since they are already criminals.
You see, this is how the way that you have to look at it. Every 10 criminals has one leader, and these leaders have to be trained in order to be able to control those who are under them.
What training does a criminal need to be able to control the other criminals to behave like criminals? Give some details, Mr. Witness. I think that's what's confusing everybody. Give some details. What's the training?
اگر
If the tribunal allows me, I talk about this more precisely in a private session.
Private session for this witness because there's a number of questions I'd like to ask him. I'm in your hands, counsel, as to when that
We will
takes place.
organize a private meeting, but not now, at a later stage, at your convenience.
Okay.
We'll discuss this to see how we can reorganize with the witness and then come back to you.
Okay, thank
So
you.
if you want to excuse the witness for the time being.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Witness, I'm mindful that you want to, and we want to, protect your identity. We want to postpone the rest of your questions from the panel until we can have that in private so that the public will not know who you are. So apologies because it's inconvenient for you, but we think on balance it's the safest course of action. I hope you agree.
بله مشکلی نیست.
No problem.